welcome to Jones & Company. I'm your host, Brian Jones. First off, let me just wish you a happy Independence, Bahamas. And today, we have a very, very special guest on this Independence Day joining us on Jones & Company. This is the Honorable George A. Smith, former Member of Parliament, former Cabinet Minister, and he was the first chairman of the Bahamas Independence Secretariat in 1973. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. It's good to see you. I remember when you and I used to sit some Friday evenings down to Mahogany and have lunch with our host, Sidney Stubbs,
Indeed.
who is still pressing on with his great dreams for Cat Island and other places, and along with yourself making the Bahamas the crypto capital of the world.
Indeed, yes. Those are some great lunches. We covered a lot of topics. We had some great discussions about what the possibilities are, right?
Right.
And I'd like to have some of those similar discussions with you today as we reflect on where the Bahamas has come from. It's been a mighty long way, as my grandmother would say. And certainly where we are today as a country, and definitely with your insight and foresight. Right, you demonstrated that tremendous foresight almost 50 years ago in this march towards independence, and so we'd really like to hear from you as well as to some forward-looking, some of the vision you still have for this country, right?
Well, I think Bahamians are indeed a fortunate people.
Mm-hmm.
We live in a beautiful country. We need to recognize, though, that this beautiful country is being threatened by climate change.
Mm-hmm.
We have had a great country with great successes in many areas, laced, of course, with some very tragic periods for instance, during the slavery years, the struggle of our early people to gain freedom. We struggled when the islands were a place where the pirates used to use the shipwrecks, the area of the piracy, and then the areas of gun running when Bahamians of that day contributed to providing armaments for the North and the South in the American Civil War. We went through racism. We've gone through periods when people of color in the Bahamas were denied their rightful place in their country. Mm-hmm. We fought for majority rule, we attained it, and then we set our sights on becoming a free and sovereign nation, which was attained. Mm-hmm. Come Sunday evening, 49 years ago, when the flag was proudly raised at Clifford Park. We saw the father of our nation, Sir Lynden Pinland, proudly holding up the instruments of our Constitution that points to our independence. I hope one day to drive in that area and see a complimentary statue of Sir Lynden and others in an area that I think will be known as Heroes Park. We've got to start to acknowledge the Bahamian heroes, male and female, those who struggled to bring us this far along the way. I believe that between now and next year, when we celebrate the beginning of our 50th year, of our golden year, we should look at what is taking place in the Bahamas that we have to correct. We obviously ought to appreciate that we need to make greater investment in education. We need to make real the dream of the Bahamas having a first-class medical system that can service the needy as well as the wealthy in our country. We have to find ways of empowering through innovation and through investment in skills training more of our young people. We have to address the vestiges of racism that to whatever extent it exists, and we have to admit it does exist to some extent. We have to address the questions of poverty. There are just too many Bahamians who tonight, on this special day, will go to bed without food. We need to lift our people out of poverty. We need to find ways of cleaning up the environment so that the country become clean and pristine as we would like to see it. I was driving near Infantry Road Thursday past, and I was shocked to see that they were cutting off the limbs of the beautiful Ponciana trees that is on that road, and I say how wasteful that is. In that those trees put air into put oxygen into the environment that is vital to human and animal existence. We need to find ways of empowering more Bahamians through partnerships between foreign investors and with the government using some of its natural wealth, like our land, the crown land that exists in this country, to empower Bahamians. The challenges we face are many, and between now and next year is a time for us to rethink on how we should relaunch the Bahamas and show that we are, in addition to dreaming about it, that we're well on our way of becoming the most successful and beautiful country in the world. Those are things that we can do. This is not a poor country. We need to manage our wealth. We need to get people to appreciate that those who have must make sacrifices sometimes to uplift those who do not have. We need to tap into the tremendous imagination of our young people like yourself in the business world to look for new and innovative ways of causing the economy to grow so that we can afford to meet those challenges. And I think we can do it. I'm greatly encouraged. I didn't come this far to see the Bahamas not be the country that we dreamt of when we first raised our flag at Clifford Park 49 years ago come Sunday. Come now.
Right. And so the Bahamas, we attained the majority rule, as you said. We attained formally independence. But you laid out a lot of the things that we still need to do to really establish ourselves as a very robust nation. Can we truly say that we are independent in the sense economically speaking, socially speaking, in terms of cultural influences from the outside? Do we own our identity? Are we independent in that sense?
Yes, we are independent in an interdependent world.
Right.
Do we want a culture that is void of appreciating other cultures? No. I think the mixtures that occur in the world, we are a people who came from Africa through slavery. We are a people who, when the Europeans arrived here in this part of what became known as the New World, they met 400,000 Indians that had come up originally from Peru in South America. That population got depleted. People of color who had come here from the revolution in Haiti, from the revolution in other countries, the loyalists who came here after the American War of Independence, and those Europeans who come in. So we are a population is made up of people who came from Africa, from Europe, some from Asia, and they mixed among themselves, developing this unique thing called Bahamians. We have Bahamian Greeks, Bahamian Chinese, Bahamian Haitians, Bahamians who are of European extraction. And we could see it in the appearance of our people. So we need to use that cultural makeup and carve out this special uniqueness that the Bahamas has and Bahamians are. We need, of course, to grow the economy. And we could only grow this by encouraging investment. That is why the emphasis of investment by foreign entities and individuals is so vital, because we have so many islands with so many special and unique characteristics that we ought to, as a country, decide how we should develop San Salvador, improve the development in Eleuthera, Andros, Cat Island, and Exuma. We have, for instance, so much natural beauty. We need to find a way of infusing economic activity into the islands which have been affected by Hurricane Dorian. We have to rebuild Grand Bahama. We got to rebuild the areas of Abaco that got damaged appreciatively. We need to look at over the hill.
Yes.
We need to find a way of getting New Providence to become that clean place that we can all proudly walk. We need to address the level of criminality in the Bahamas, whether that is crimes against women or crimes against young people. And we need to look at the areas where commercial crime is being conducted, and so support the institutions that have to deal with those issues in a way that the society will know that there is a people's effort behind the solving of these many, many problems.
Right. And so at the dawn of our independence, I'm sure a lot of these issues were starting to be addressed in terms of how do we develop this country, right? That we now call the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. How do we develop our family islands? My question really is in those early days, was there really a Nassau-centric view for development, or was there a serious effort to branch out and develop family islands over these past 5 decades?
It was and has remained a New Providence developed centric island, particularly because we relied heavily on tourism and on the mining industry, and they were primarily in New Providence.
Right.
We have grown outwards a bit. There was a time when Grand Bahama played a much more significant role than it is now playing, naturally. And there was a time when Abaco played a very significant role. And I've seen, as a son of Exuma, I've seen the growth in Exuma. I know about the prominence of Eleuthera and the decline of Eleuthera. We know San Salvador has had its moments when it was doing well, and I think it's going to re-emerge with the reopening of Club Med. And I believe that the other islands are going to also improve. We've seen Bimini perhaps become a little overdeveloped for the size of Bimini and its population. I think we have made tremendous strides since the dawn of our independence. The strides we have made in education, in health care. We established the Bahamas as a ship registration country, and we're number 3 in the world today, or at least it was. I was the minister responsible in transport when ship registration became a reality. I have seen we've established the Central Bank of the Bahamas. We established the College of the Bahamas that is now morphed into the university. It took us a little while to do it. National insurance. And anybody who didn't support national insurance when it was proposed in the years following independence, they ought to now know that their position was ill-founded. Because during the period of pandemic, if a national insurance came to the aid of thousands and thousands of Bahamians, We can see the benefits now. Anybody who would criticize the establishment of our defense force now know how vital they have become in the protection of our borders and our fishing grounds. So we have seen progress in those areas, in certainly healthcare too, not to the extent that we should have. We still need national health insurance.
Yes.
We still need to invest more money in education. We need to invest money without flinching in terms of taking care of the poor, because a society is really only as good as that society takes care of the most vulnerable in it.
Indeed.
So taking care of the poor and the dispossessed is something we have to, as a society, not just as a government, but as a society, as a people, we have to recognize we have a responsibility to them. So therefore, I believe that any concessions which should be given that could lift people out of poverty in terms of governmental tax structuring, we ought to seriously consider doing. I also firmly believe that we need to recognize the value in recording our history, recording our successes, and do it objectively and honestly. We have to also, I believe, soon genuinely tackle the problems of gender inequality. We had 2 referendums that dealt with the issue, but somehow that we failed to convince our people. Now, to those who don't believe Bahamians will buy into those kinds of issues and do constitutional changes, I say that we became an independent country because the Bahamian people decided it in a vote in 1972.
Right.
So if you promote it properly, if you educate your people so that they could see the advantages of a country that is not gender biased, the Bahamian people, I'm confident, will go along with it.
Yes.
But and I don't believe that we could deal with those issues which failed at 2 constitutional referendums. I don't believe the approach to try to do it by simple legislation will meet with any great degree of success, because Bahamians want to know that they are participants in major changes in the society in which they live.
That's right.
And those responsible for promoting the ideas, selling the ideas, have to recognize they got to approach it, knowing that it's the people who have the ultimate right to decide for or against.
You're absolutely right. I mean, we do have a very active democracy, right?
Yes.
We always have a high voter turnout, et cetera. And one of the signs of a strong democracy and also a very strong country, right, that can stand on its own 2 feet is the strength and integrity of its institutions. You mentioned a number of the institutions just now. They're all very central to our economic and social development. The university and several others that you mentioned. Some of our institutions are stronger than others, right? Some of them are outright weak, right? Some of them are not really fulfilling their purpose. But I think there might be some institutions that are actually still non-existent because we're a developing nation. Where do you think we should put that institutional focus that's going to help drive and increase the integrity of how we do business in this country? These are the things that attract foreign investors,
yes.
right?
I think we should strengthen institutions that attract investment,
Yes.
be it foreign, be it from Bahamians in partnership, and if necessary, government agencies that can have an investment in the economy. I believe that we could look anew or whether it is practical to invest the large sums of money we are still investing in public-owned broadcasting. I think that with some subsidy the radio and television stations that are privately owned, that can be commissioned to run certain programs, public broadcasting and educational program. We'll save some money there that can go into education.
Indeed.
If we, as a government, get out of the airline business, set the rules that govern the aviation business in the Bahamas, and particularly the aviation business in terms of those airlines that fly into the country. We ought to embrace more airlines coming into the Bahamas, different destinations, and guaranteeing that a high standard is set for domestic air travel. These reports we get every now and then after some homegoing, like the last case in Long Island, is unfortunate. Planes that should not be in the air should not be licensed. Pilots who have problems in terms of maintaining their license should be prosecuted if they get into planes. We need to come out of certain other businesses and monitor the management of them, monitor the conduct of them, and put those monies that come from the public treasury, except where it is absolutely necessary. I admit, for instance, for quite a while we still have to subsidize planes flying to some of our least developed islands in the southern Bahamas.
Sure.
I understand that. But there may not be a reason to maintain the heavy subvention into a Bahamas Air. Maybe that money, we should look at where we're spending money. We should look at how when we travel for the legitimate purposes, anyone who foolishly criticized the Prime Minister for going to regional meetings where he is required to go as Prime Minister, CARICOM, meetings for the Commonwealth to come together, to forge relationships, to strengthen them, where he should go as Prime Minister, and the international bodies that we are members of. We are members of the United Nations. We are members of the International Maritime Organization. We are members of the Trade Union Congress and all those in Geneva, and those are meetings that we have to attend.
Yes.
Because we are a member of the world community and we want our input.
Indeed.
We want our input and we want to benefit from those institutions.
That's right.
So, but we could manage the size of the delegation, save some money there. We could manage the length of time it takes us to get to where the meeting is being held, and the length of time it takes to get back from where the meeting is held. We could save money. And at all times in these things, we must account to the people. We must not wait for the people to demand answers. We ought to volunteer those answers. We ought to use the advantages of coming to this station, going to the other stations, and explaining to people why they have to do things.
Right.
And if we do that, we will find that the Bahamian people will understand. We promise during elections that we will keep in touch with you. Well, the people hire you. They're your bosses. Report to your boss regularly, honestly, and respectfully.
Indeed. That's actually a very, very clear framework for ensuring good governance.
Absolutely.
Right? Those are all hallmarks of good governance. And we're going to talk a bit more about that right after this break. So thank you for joining us in that first segment, which was brought to you by Agio Digital, and we'll be right back.